Hi, Pat here. Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I modeled, printed, and painted this brain slug from Futurama. You know about brain slugs, right? They come from the Spleef Nebula, they feed off of delta brainwaves, they can be stopped by helmets and garlic shampoo. Well, they're also a great object to model using the new Intuos tablet my wife got me for Christmas, which comes with a copy of ZBrush Core. If you don't know what it is, ZBrush Core is a 3D modeling program that lets you sculpt your object, kind of like clay in the real world. This kind of modeling is perfect if you're making something that's supposed to look organic. They also offer a free program called Sculptris, which has a lot of the same basic features of ZBrush. If you want to try that, I'll put a link to it in the description. So once I installed my tablet in ZBrush Core and watched a bunch of tutorials on ZBrush, I dove in and started modeling. I started using a low-poly Dynamesh sphere, which automatically recalculates itself whenever I push pieces around. This way, as I model the sphere into the brain slug shape, it doesn't start looking jagged and stretched. I very quickly got used to sculpting the model, which really does seem like clay when you're using it. It wasn't long before the basic shape started to look right. I experimented with a bunch of different brushes, but eventually stuck with only 3 for nearly the entire model. Move to shape most of the model, smooth to clean up the surface, and inflate to add some size to the, I'll call them feet, I guess. Using those basic tools, I just kept sculpting and playing around until I liked how it looked. I eventually realized I made too many feet, so I just shoved the extra ones back into the model and distributed the remaining ones around the bottom, which was actually pretty easy. You can see the inflate brush in action here, which plumps up the feet a bit. It was actually the perfect tool for what I was trying to do. For the eye, I created a sphere in a subtool, which is a kind of layer in ZBrush. Each subtool is modeled independently. So I squashed the sphere, moved it into place, and then made some minor tweaks so it meshed well with the body. Then I went back to tweaking the model, trying to get the base mesh into the right final shape. At this point, I wasn't making drastic changes anymore, but instead trying to improve the details. For instance, I turned off symmetry mode and started making the left side slightly different than the right. Once I was happy with how it looked, I turned off Dynamesh and then subdivided it, so it added a lot more polygons to give it a smoother look. Then I went back and continued to fine-tune the details of the model. The one thing I couldn't figure out was how to make the bottom of the model perfectly flat for printing. I assume there's some way to do it within ZBrush, but after wasting over an hour, I decided to just bring it over to a different 3D modeling program that I'm more comfortable with. So I exported the model from ZBrush as an STL file and then opened it with Lightwave. Then I just used a simple box object to figure out where I wanted to slice the model. I used a simple Boolean operation to chop off the bottom and made it completely flat and ready for printing. But then I realized I didn't model the antenna yet, so I went ahead and made those in Lightwave too. This could easily be done in ZBrush, but I already had Lightwave open, so I made a spline to define the general shape of one antenna. Then I made a circle polygon and used the Rail Extrude tool to make the object along the spline. I slightly tapered the bottom wider and then added a simple sphere to the top to finish it off. I closed off the tube geometry to make sure it will print correctly and then mirrored the whole thing over to the other side. Finally, I played with the rotation of one of the antennae to make it look less symmetrical. With the model finished, I pulled it into my slicer. I had to scale it up a bit. After slicing the model, I inspected the layers in the preview pane, making sure that the printer wasn't going to squirt out filament into thin air. I was especially concerned about the top of the antenna, and I had to make a few final tweaks to the position of the spheres within Lightwave to make sure they would print well without any extra supports. I printed the model using some generic green PLA I found at a local electronics store. The print turned out really well, although there was some stringing between the antenna, but that was pretty easy to pick off by hand. To paint the eye, I just used some standard white acrylic paint. I carefully applied multiple coats until I couldn't see any of the green underneath anymore. To paint the pupil, I used the inside of a washer as a stencil and just drew it on with a Sharpie. I also reapplied after it dried to make sure it was a nice dark black. And that's it, it's all done. For my first attempt at painting a 3D printed object, I'm pretty satisfied. I know I barely scratched the surface of what you can do to finish your prints, which normally includes a lot of sanding and filling and priming and more sanding, but I gained actual experience painting onto PLA with acrylic, which is pretty cool. And in the future, I can build on that and try better techniques. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy seeing this little guy sitting on my desk every day. If you like this video and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel and you'll be notified when I upload new content. If you have any ZBrush tips or just want to say hi, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.